There is a massive movement happening within the longevity and aging landscape. It turns out there is much we can do to extend our lifespan and reverse the effects of aging. What we've been taught and led to believe about aging and human disease are now outdated and no longer accurate. That means it's time to change the current mainstream paradigm and have different kinds of conversations when it comes to our well-being. And it's time to recognize that we have the power within ourselves to dictate and drive our own health span and aging journey. Hi, I'm Suzaida Hippolito, host of Timeless Vitality, where we are redefining aging so we become truly timeless. The woman you see before you, I wasn't always like this. The woman I used to be was disconnected from herself and experienced a lot of inner conflict. I used to suffer from depression, anxiety, and an Adderall addiction. And to escape my suffering, I would party and do cocaine and ecstasy. I've had to heal all of this. And it was through my own healing journey and self-discovery journey that I awoke to this beautiful dimension of our human experience. There's an aspect of our human experience where people have dedicated and are dedicating their lives to advancing our human potential for the evolution of our humanity. And that brings me to our speaker today. He is at the forefront. He is one of the forefront thinkers leading the future of humanity, bridging science, technology, and spirituality. His work focuses on studying the intersection of man and technology and the ways in which we can improve productivity, health, and our well-being. Now, he's been doing this work for over 2 decades as a technology entrepreneur, author, and professional speaker. He is one of the co-authors of the Biohacker's Handbook, and he is also one of the world's top leading biohackers and human optimization experts. Please meet Teemu Arina. Teemu, welcome, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Now, I'd like to ask you, Teemu, what got you into this world of human optimization and biohacking? What was the catalyst for that for you?
Well, I guess like it's a progression. Like there's like no single point in anyone's lives. You can like look back and you can say like that was the moment, or like for me, for example, to get into biohacking. But I've always been interested in optimizing systems and processes. I learned programming when I was 13. I've set up my first company when I was 16. I was a teacher of students for university courses when I was 19. Became a professional speaker, consultant, kind of a child prodigy. So I've been always interested in systems. First computer systems, then organizational human systems, and then biological systems. So one of the definitions of biohacking is to optimize the systems inside and outside of you. So outside is of course like not just the food that you eat and the environment you are in. It's also about the systems inside of you, for example, the microbiome and your biology, like and starting from the level of DNA and human behavior and like all of that. But for me, that was, I would say, like one of those tipping points or paradigm shifts happened over a decade ago, when I was struggling with, I guess I was not really struggling. I was like, I thought I was living my dream life by spending every waking hour on work. And like many do, it's a
Yeah,
very
yes, we do.
American dream, I guess. And I'm not American, I'm from Finland, but like hard work. So no breaks, just like pushing yourself a little bit too much, like too much interesting stuff to do. It was not that I was stressed it was that there was just a lot of demand for my uh, time, and like I thought I was
Mm.
like living a pretty healthy life,
Mm.
exercising regularly and eating whole foods and like all of that. But in the end, that was not enough. So I had like a stress related um, illness that I got. And in the end, the way I healed myself was looking into the mirror and
Mm.
not outsourcing my issues to uh, anyone else or medical
Mhm.
establishment or whatnot. What most people do, like they think that someone else will fix them if they break.
Mm.
But you have to
Yeah.
be an expert on your own health and well-being, and that's when I got into taking seriously what I'm doing. What I was doing back then was not called biohacking. Um, it was a struggle to to basically de decrypt and reverse engineer what was going on in my system to restore its balance. And I don't
Mhm.
trust gurus. I don't trust experts, because I've noticed that while being an expert myself at that point, since I was 16, in my like entering my 30s, I'm 41 now. Um, every guru has a bias. You take
Mm.
any health guru out there, everyone has like a dogma, like they have a belief system that
Mm.
their approach is the best. Whatever your poison or medicine is, like if
Mm.
it's a ketogenic diet, if it's fasting, if it's veganism, if it's pharmaceuticals, like whatever your belief system is, like you have a blind spot. So because of that, I did dive into optimizing uh, a protocol that would work best for my body by starting from medical literature. Understood that I'm operating with a black box. I don't really understand with my body what is the input, what is the process, what is the output. So I started gathering information, biomedical tests, genetic tests, gut tests, wearable data. And that was, by the way, this was in 2011. So that's
Mhm.
like over a decade ago. There was like many of these things were not on the market. Like the microbiome tests were just becoming available for the general public. It's pretty new stuff. Wearables were not available on every supermarket.
Mm.
You had to order them from specific companies. Um, Nutritional tests were not widely available. You had to really look for labs that were able to do that, and doctors often wouldn't send you to do those because they thought it's unnecessary. So um, this functional approach, like I found a way to do all of that to gather the information, and then I
Mm.
read the medical literature because yeah, I don't trust gurus like other people's filters. So I went straight to the
Mm.
source of looking at meta-analysis, and I designed my own anti-inflammatory diet. um, uh, um, Basically a diet where I restricted myself of foods that would increase inflammation. I would add foods that would protect from inflammation. I would put specific things in that would help me to heal the issue that I was dealing with. And it was a holistic protocol. Also, it had sleep optimization, exercise, but not too much, meditation, breath work. Um, there was also heat alteration, like sauna, ice bath stuff. There was diet stuff, but also supplements to supplement a diet. So pretty much everything like a biohacker would do to optimize and all their life. And I would say like what I did then was like I was pretty spot on, although I know a lot more now what I was doing. I cut out all the sugar, um, all the I didn't really eat processed foods, but
Mhm.
like basically like choosing more nutrient dense, higher quality ingredients, and also eating more in a diverse way, and
Mhm.
pretty much a slightly calorie deficit, um, uh, uh, diet where majority came from fats and quality protein and a lot of fiber, but not really carbohydrates. So like that's pretty much what I did. And after a while, I was after 3 or 4 months, I noticed my symptoms went away. After 5 months, summer was coming along, and I always had seasonal allergies, and then suddenly I didn't have a seasonal allergy at all. That was interesting.
Wow.
And also when it came to energy management, like I had more energy, and I didn't have the crashes throughout the day. I was like I
Mm-hmm.
had like just constant. So I was in a better state than before I got sick. And then I just start sharing with people who might be interested in it. The first group of people was 40, the next one was 250, the next one was 500, the next one was 1,000, and that went up. So now the Biohackers Summit is having its 10th anniversary with 2,000 people
Mm.
in Finland this July. And I wrote a book together with people who were on a similar path as I am, with Dr. Olli Sovier and nutritionist Jaakko Halmetoja. So I was kind of the editor of the book and a technologist, but I've been basically reading medical literature every single day, um, like for the over a decade now. And yeah, I would say I have pretty well dialed down like human physiology and nutrition. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
understand also, if you train as a doctor, and this is what my co-author said, that doctors get like he got in his medical education, like there was 2 hours of nutritional training.
Mm.
2 hours. So it's like
Mm.
you don't really get like into this stuff unless you have personal interest in it or you want to specialize on it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've been like studying it now for over 10 years, what you could call biohacking. And we have published a lot of like thousands and thousands of pages of material. But in the end, it's the hero's journey. It is the wounded healer. It's the struggle. It's the pain. It's whatever that
Mm-hmm.
motivates you to find a solution. I was lucky enough to take it seriously and like discover
Mm.
my own way. Um, and then it worked for me, but I don't say what my protocol is that it would work for everyone. That's what I've
Mm-hmm.
learned in
Mm-hmm.
over 10 years of health optimization, is that you have to find the thing that works for your genetics, your age, your gender, your lifestyle, your context, your unique um, complexity of who you are. So you have to figure out what is the 20% that will result in 80% of improvement in your case. I've I have now the data from a decade to show that I've been able to slow down aging. Have been able to reverse conditions. I've been able to increase the likelihood of preventing certain things happening, like diabetes or cardiovascular disease or organ failures or
Mm.
hormonal. And it's systematic, it's
Mm-hmm.
long term, it's not like an anecdote. But that's just my case. If you copy my what I do, you might not get the same results. So I don't say like there's some blueprint that works for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in the end, I have, I would say, a methodology of finding what works for you,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that can be applied. Some principles that are universal, and easily adjustable to individual needs. But in the end, it's all about human psychology and behavior. I can give you the perfect algorithm for improving your health, but most people won't do it,
Mm.
whatever they need to do. 80% of people, when given dietary advice, don't follow the dietary advice. Over 60% of people, if a doctor diagnoses them and tells them, take this drug, do this, uh, over 60% of people will not do it. And when asked about it, they will lie. They will tell, yeah, I took it, or um, whatever, like, or they took too much, and they would lie, yeah, I just like did normal amounts. Um, People are very good at self sabotage. Um, Even biohackers, I would say, like it's it's easy to assume like many of the influencers out there would live like perfectly the thing they promote. But I've seen firsthand, like being over a decade in this industry, that that's not the case. We are humans, and we struggle with behavior
Mm.
change. We struggle with addictions. We struggle with our um, own issues. We have relapses. You can't live perfectly, fully adjusted with your circadian rhythm always, doing all those cool stuff you hear on podcasts. Um, if you have an ideal day, there is not every day is the same day. So
Mm.
you have to
Yeah.
learn more like, I would say, not protocols, not rigid systems that you need to follow, but you have to learn how to adapt. You have to have wisdom to understand what is the 20% that will result in 80% of improvement.
Yeah.
You have to be able to figure out what your day looks like today, and that will inform your decisions on health and wellness and productivity. And if you decide to um, go out of the realm of what would be optimal or ideal, you know how to pay the bill, so to say, how you recover from it. If you want to go party with friends, if you want to work really late, how do you take care of yourself that you rebound back? And this resilience is the core of all of this, and it's the core of how to live longer, and it's the core of our species in general. It's our resilience and ability to adapt. And many people, when they study something new, you want to learn martial arts, you want to learn a new diet, a new gym thing, you start from imitating masters, you start from protocols, you start from rituals, you start from how many grams of this and that I need to have. And then over time you can let go of all of that. You will just have the wisdom to guide yourself. And in the end, like, um, it's also important to have a little bit of stress on the system. If you live like in a perfect clean environment all the time, it will affect your immune system. Your system needs to be challenged. You can't
Mm.
be like Michael
Mm.
Jackson in an oxygen tank all the time with your gloves on and your blue light blockers and like a mold free home and fully filtered water and the most organic cleanest food, because in the end what shapes us is also the struggles we go through,
Mm.
and that is what prepares you. So it's important to understand the homeostasis of this, the ebb and flow and the balance of compensatory systems that strive to keep you in balance. You
Well,
go
let
to
me
gym
ask
to
you
damage your
this.
body. Let me finish my sentence. Just
Yeah.
you go to the gym to damage your body, but uh, it's not, the growth doesn't happen when you do your workout. The growth happens when you sleep over it. And
Mm.
if you train too much, you don't recover enough. If you don't train enough, you don't stimulate enough the right things. So it's all about the balance of everything. That's what I've learned. So for me, biohacking is not better, faster, stronger. It is more
Mm.
about how to live in harmony.
Mm. It's about living in harmony and the balance. Well, I was going to ask, what would you say if you were to summarize the thing that keeps us in the struggle, that keeps us from developing our human potential? If you were to summarize that, how would you speak to that?
Can you rephrase what do you mean?
Yeah, I think that, so for instance, for me, I wasn't, because I was struggling with anxiety and depression, and I had an addiction to Adderall, which is one of the most addictive drugs for giving us this false sense of human performance, right? And I would escape my struggles by on the weekend, I would work my corporate job, or during the week, excuse me, I'd work my corporate job. Then on the weekends, I'd go and party. And I wasn't aware of my potential back then. And I was like basically suppressing my own potential. And it wasn't until I stopped doing that, I changed my habits, I healed all of that, that I realized that, wow, there is this potential inside of me. And now every day I like develop that potential. And it's the work I do with my students and clients. And so my question to that is like, what would you, because you've been doing this work for so long and clearly you have so much wisdom and knowledge around what it can take to develop our human potential. So what would you say is, from a big picture overview, how would you summarize, like, what are we doing as humans, as species, that is keeping us from truly developing our human potential?
Well, it's a good question. What is human potential here? Like, is it a narcissistic trip to like be somehow like beautiful and high performing and all that? Isn't our potential, does it exist only for to be able to pass on adequately? The potential is to be able to pass on the information to the next generation that our species can survive. So maybe your role actually is to gather from the environment the dangers and the stress and all the potential things that could kill you so that you can adapt and pass that information on. If you're always living in a perfect cocoon's nest and like in perfect harmony, like there is like no benefit of you for the survival of the species from a biological sense. From maybe your contributions, it could be intellectual, it could be like all kinds of corporate stuff or whatever, like, or you can be a cult leader, whatever. But from a biological standpoint, there is no adaptation without stress. So actually,
Mm,
the fear of dying is a key thing for evolution of anything. And if you think about your
mm,
life, the most important events are not the high points. The most important events are the struggles you went through that triggered the changes that you now see. That point in time was a changing point. For you, it was Adderall. For me, it was like working too much and too late and like not taking time off. So whatever your poison, right? But that poison teaches you. Uh, the
mm,
wounded healer concept, uh, Carl Jung popularized this ancient mythological Greek concept of the wounded healer in psychology. And it's basically like that you are solving your own problem. It's your own hurt that inspires you to go deep and not just heal yourself, but help others. It's that what teaches you. It's not your
mm,
wins, it is your struggles that teach you. And
mm,
I mean, if you take any kind of experience in life, that's basically like if you take any influencer out there in health and wellness, it would be weird if they don't have a story of
mm,
how they were inflamed, overweight, like hormonally imbalanced, um, with autoimmune condition, you name it, like they all have like some kind of story, and how they fixed that and how that pain motivated them on a career choice. If you
mm,
work in psychology or you're a therapist, it's like 80% of the therapist, their career choice is informed by their own life struggles. So they want to understand their own psychology or the psychology of people around them, or maybe they had a really hard childhood that led them to be fascinated about the human mind. And so that's like where your attention goes, that's where your energy goes. And when you're in a really hard place where you can't like just ignore something and you have to like look things face to face,
mm,
um, that's where the like real changes come from struggle. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger is obviously one thing. So that's something I can say about human potential. Now, like how do you get there is you can systematically engineer uncomfortable things into your life to actually unlock your real potential. And this is exactly what biohackers do. They restrict their calories, they restrict their diets, but actually they don't really restrict. They also expand. They start doing all kinds of stuff that they didn't eat before, or like they would supplement and optimize details, but it's a hard thing to do. They take ice baths and sauna. They push their internal thermostat to struggle. They do high altitude training. They hold their breath. Uh, they go deep underwater, even a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. So it's like pushing your organism to its limits. They do hard
Mm.
workouts.
Mm.
They practice to improve their VO2 max, one of the biggest indicators of longevity. You have to do like zone 5 exercise. It's hard. They do heavy lifting. Uh, um, they try to postpone the fun stuff and go to sleep instead. So it's like it's not fun, right? But
Mm.
in the end, it's challenging to your organism. But the rewarding thing is that those are exactly the things that will lead to the positive adaptations that give you the biological feedback loops that tell you like this is working. You see it in the mirror. You see it in your cognitive abilities. You see it. You see it in everything, in your physique, in your biomarkers when you're doing the hard thing. And
Mm.
in the end, um, it's that struggle that then like leads to these positive adaptations in the human body that amplifies its willingness to stay alive. And basically, if you look at it, that's what longevity is all about. Um,
Mm.
if you live in a perfectly harmonious, you have constant access to food, you don't need to really work for anything, like whatever, like you're basically becoming weaker and weaker and weaker by month, and to the point when something happens you don't have the resilience to deal with it.
Mm.
Now resilience is built over time. It's You train for it, you train your immune system for it, you train your physical body for it, you train your mind for it. You're training your system at the limit so that when it needs to deal with it, no problem, right?
Mm.
If you need to be in a cold place or in a hot place, you can train for it, and your cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory system can be trained to adapt better. If you need to hold your breath, you can train for it, and you can go from 2 minutes to 24, which is a world record or something like this. But you can't like just go straight to 24 minutes, right? You have to train for it. And the thing is that if you train too hard, you die also. So it's you don't grow. There's a law of dose response here. So you need to
Mm.
kind of stress the system a little bit. It's called hormetic stress, positive stress, eustress. You want to push it a little bit, but not too far, and whatever is your context. And those will lead to all those like wonderful epigenetic adaptations and blah 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 that like leads to better health and well-being and resilience. So I would be
Mm.
like, basically, how do you engineer uncomfortable things in your life that have positive
Interesting.
results later?
Yeah.
It's like a psychedelic experience. Like the best things in your life, whatever, if it's substance or breath work generated or like life circumstance generated, whatever, those are not fun events. But the realizations that come out of it is the positive thing.
Mm.
If it's all just like comfortable, there's like no
Yeah.
real adaptation happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're just on
Wow.
Adderall all the time and everything is amazing, like there's like no positive change.
Well, that's certainly a very different way to think of our struggles and the conflict in our lives, the challenges in our lives. It's a very, what I would say, robust way. Like And I like how you're saying you kind of engineer those challenges in your lives. And what's what for someone like for me, like hearing this, I'm thinking, okay, wow, it's blowing my mind to think of this the struggles in my life differently. Not that I have a lot of struggles, but there's certainly, challenges I move through. And what can you offer some insight? Like what's a mindset we can adapt to start thinking about the struggles and challenges in our lives differently?
Right. So one thing that I've noticed and learned is that it really boils back down to coping mechanisms in many ways.
Mm,
Um, and what do I mean by that? So actually, healthy living is a coping mechanism to avoiding dying. So if you had a life experience which almost killed you, or like which was struggling, like the healing process from it makes you utterly afraid to end up in the same place again. So you do everything and all possible to stay away from getting back being overweight or inflamed or whatever was your issue. So or depressed. So you're avoiding at all cost not ending up in the same place again. So then health becomes a coping mechanism. It's a positive coping mechanism.
mm,
Negative coping mechanisms are when you're soothing yourself with detrimental and damaging and cumulatively, I mean, with things that are not in your best interest in a sense, just to escape. So escapism, where you're running away from the stuff that you actually should be doing. And people have all kinds of trauma, and trauma is not really like what happened to you, it's your response to it. It can be psychological, physiological, whatever. But I've noticed that a lot of these high performer types, who are into biohacking, they actually have like some kind of drive of not feeling enough, and that not feeling enough drives their entrepreneurial mindset and willingness to be best in something,
mm,
and never be satisfied, actually always be afraid that you are not the best. So take
mm,
any of the big names, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, whatever, you name it. I think a lot of them, I mean, how many companies does Elon Musk have? Like how many wives and families he's had? Like it's like you're never happy, you never settle. And it's almost celebrated to push the boundaries constantly and never ending. But what is
mm,
happening there is you're
mm,
burning yourself in the process. And so then, um, your lack of self-esteem or your lack of self-worth or whatever that drives your insecurities, and then like the coping mechanism there is like then to overwork, for
mm,
example, or to be a infomaniac and try to learn everything that's out there to better your situation. um, Whatever that is, that can be pathological. And now also, I mean, there's the escapism that you just want to shut it down. Like you just like
mhm,
sedate yourself. You take
mhm,
sleeping pills and you take painkillers and you take um, whatever that suppresses your emotions, uh, or you just, you're constantly on stimulants and you're like getting dopamine crashes when you're not on something,
yeah,
um, which is probably familiar to you. So like it is to me, like it's becoming aware and shining a light on those hidden aspects that drive your
mm,
behavior, and then
mm,
reverse
yeah,
engineering that, like where does that come from, and what is the part of you, what is the root thing, which like your physiological symptoms might have a psychological, spiritual, almost ancestral component to it. And like if you can get to that and become aware of it,
mm,
like that's when you change. And
mm,
biohacking with all these technologies, it can shine light into some things that makes you pay attention to some things like your work or
Mm.
sleep or your relationships or whatever is causing the stress,
Yeah.
because so many people are not really aware
Yep.
of what's happening in their lives, in fact, and also of their repeated patterns, or they, think that they kind of explain it away that this is just how I am, this is how my personality, I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But bro, you can change that. Like, you don't need to be in a certain way. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
have like certain reactions every time something happens. So you can change. Absolutely, the mind is malleable. It is neuroplastic, but it's super hard work to change a system that is trained to react in a certain way. Now, that's kind of the first step. Now, I've noticed that basically in all of this, you are your own worst enemy. It's like, in the end, in personal mastery, whatever it is, um, the not feeling enough is like there, as an example, for some people always, or being afraid of dying. And it's a survival mechanism that sometimes leads to pathological behaviors that like might suit you in the short term, but damage you and your relationships long term. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very hard to see the long-term consequences in the moment, right? But if you're intellectual, you can kind of like dissect that, this is not good, and you you can change that. So, but I've also noticed that you can also swing to the other side of the fence. So once you are like getting out of your toxic behaviors and all that, and you go like super healthy, and you go like super enlightened, like that can also turn into toxicity, in a sense, like what I kind of described as like this like extremism, in a
Mm.
sense, which
Mm.
is not in the end in your interest either.
Yeah.
So it's a fine balance. And
Mm.
unfortunately, in this world of health and wellness information, people like to follow extremists. They like controversial stuff. They like the guy who is injecting his genitals with stem cells. They like the person who is like only eating meat or liver. They
Mm.
like the person who is like all about sunlight, or the guy who is all about breath work, or the person who is all about ice baths and nothing else matters. So
Mm.
we like extreme things because in our minds it makes it easier to categorize people. Okay, that's the ice bath guy, and okay, like if you are a little bit everything, it's not interesting. And in this era of
Mm.
social media, like all these
Mm.
circus animals with their extreme behaviors gets amplified. The issue is that if you start to believe that that's like some extreme approach is the truth, um,
Mm.
you
Mhm.
are lost. You have to find it in yourself, like what works for you and what not. Like, you
Yeah.
can't just go out there and copy one thing from someone and assume there's a silver bullet to all of your problems.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a bit cynical and like all that, but I think it's healthy to be a little bit less black and white on things,
Mhm.
even with seed oils and sugar. So like, it's like water. You can drink too much water, but without it, you're not going to survive. It's the same with, I mean, take candida for example. Like, of course, like candida overgrowth is a serious condition. But if you don't have no candida in your body, you will be dead. You actually are in a
Mm.
symbiotic relationship with that organism.
Mm.
So in a sense, like, often, like, it's really about dose response. Like,
Mm.
you can be like, gluten is like killing me, but like, you know like if you eat bread once a year, you're not has like no effect on you unless you have like celiac disease. It might kill you, right? But it's like very rarely something done occasionally is going to kill you. It's the long-term repeated behaviors,
Mm.
the mechanisms or the kind of algorithms of your life that really drive you. And in that, like, you can get go to absolute extreme um, areas,
Mm-hmm.
especially with diet. People end up sometimes into pretty dark places, like going like super extreme with a specific approach. And yeah, so like if I've learned something in over a decade of looking at this thing, is that the more I know, the less black and white I am, what is healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and also like what is the truth of things in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. And like and my own trust in my own knowledge in a sense. And I kind of like understand it when people get into a space, they get like super enthusiastic and they start to believe in this like one thing. Okay, it's peptides now, or it's stem cells, or whatever. um the Americans specifically seem to be very molecule based. Like I here in Europe, like I'm very much nature oriented. Like we have every
Mm.
man's rights. I eat 100 different plants that I collect myself. Um, like a person with 100 supplements taking every day might struggle identifying a dandelion from a, but like what is my approach is of course different. But it's in a similar way, like thousands of years old systems, they can be engineered over time, and everything, like many different things can work. Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, Western medicine, Mediterranean diet, um, you know, some kind of Okinawan pescatarian, uh, like just cardio, just heavy lifting, you name it. Like there is no protocol that is ultimately going to work for everyone.
There's no
But
one.
the
Yeah.
process of experimentation and
Mm.
learning and accumulating understanding is
Mm-hmm.
what takes you gradually to the right place, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Well, I certainly appreciate the ways, like so much of what you've talked about is very disruptive to our current ways of thinking, especially when you talk about the extremism and how we might tend to think like there's a one thing that fits all, when in reality, like you just said, it's up to us to experiment. Like what works for us individually and uniquely, and what works for you
Yeah,
may not be the same as what works for me. And I just I really also appreciate how your so much of what you've talked about is causing, at least in my opinion, how I'm receiving it is this whole nother level of awareness. Like, ask questions, challenge the information that's being given to you, experiment to see like what really does work, take control. And I think that's the thing too, take control of your own wellness, of your own health, your own well-being, because most of
yeah,
us
yeah,
we relinquish that control to gurus and experts, to systems and whatnot. And really, it boils down to us and the choices that we make and how we integrate all these things. And to wrap our talk, Teemu, there's three questions I ask all of my speakers. And the first question is, what is your number one life hack for promoting your own longevity?
so let me give you like a continuation to that, so that people get like a good conclusion and understanding. That I,
Okay.
because I just like blew up the whole Pandora's box of things. And if I want to like give you an advice on longevity, like as much as I said don't trust gurus, uh,
Mm,
you have to trust something, right?
mm.
Can you
Yeah,
trust your
that's
own sense?
true.
Can you trust your senses? I don't think so.
Mm,
It's neither trusting only your senses, and your common sense especially will lie to you. Don't either trust gurus, like, but find something in between. So like if there's a lot of gurus out there who teach all kinds of stuff, don't just listen to one, listen multiple ones, and go to the
mm,
behind of what they are teaching, so that you can kind of integrate a more comprehensive understanding. So if you're into diets, don't just buy one, but like look into different ones and look at the pros and cons. Then
Mm,
don't just trust external opinions or even science alone without testing those things on yourself. And this is a critical part. When you're testing things on yourself, you can't trust your senses. So figure out how to measure that a little bit more objectively, or get like a feedback loop where you can learn about it faster. And and that's key. That's where wearables, biological testing, a lot of things come into play. If you have a belief system that ketogenic diet is the best thing ever, like do follow your biomarkers so you see how it really affects hormones and lipid markers and inflammation and all of that, so that you actually have a more objective understanding of your bias.
mm,
Now, in that way, you optimize the environment outside and inside of you in a more sophisticated manner, and I believe that also helps you to live longer. um, what if there's something that we can learn also from blue zones where people live longer? There's not a single pill,
mm,
there's no silver bullet, there's not a single diet, there's not a single exercise that will make you live longer. All of them live long, but what is kind of common to them is slow down. It's not about
mm,
speeding up. It's more about spending more time with your friends. It's more about spending time in nature. It's more about spending time in your community. And it's about moving a little bit, quite a lot every single day. So don't be like stationary, stuck in front of your phone or computer all the time thinking you're killing it. So it's really is like so simple. Like get out of
mm,
the Western mindset of like not being enough and trying to beat the competition. like
mm,
like understand when you have made it, you don't need to be the best, you just need to be different and be the best at that. And
mm,
in that way you have unique capabilities. This is what I learned myself about things. It's almost impossible to win the rat race if
mm,
everyone is playing on the same rules. You have to figure out your own game and your own rules and be the best in that one. And so in that way, like, you have something unique to contribute to the world.
mm. It's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And thank you for clarifying this idea of trust and who to trust and how to trust. My next question for you is where do you see the future of our longevity headed?
Well, down. If you trust the statistics, almost every country, the average life expectancy is going down, and it has been going for years now, since like 2020, actually earlier, 2018 in US, I think, was kind of the tipping point of going down. So it was not about um, the little thing that made us all a little bit isolated a few years ago, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's related to Western lifestyle, and that is dragging us down now everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, there's problems in our food chain and like all those things that extended our life and made things more hygienic and more accessible, and we are not dying of hunger that easily anymore, or poor quality water or whatever. Like, we have pretty good hygiene, and pretty good access to food. So basically, those basic lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs are kind of fulfilled. What is killing us is it's too comfortable. So like, it's all about getting back to nature and engineering uncomfortable things in your life, in my opinion, in a balanced way. So those are the things that like promote growth. Now, I do believe we are in the time with all this AI technology and accelerating returns of exponential technologies, that we will figure out ways to extend health span in the context of our lifespan. So, how to live more healthy years in your life, how to prevent disease, so all the preventive medicine and technology. So we are moving from acute healthcare as reactive to true healthcare, which is preventative and predictive by nature.
Mm,
Um, and I believe in Western, or not Western, just like countries that have a higher GDP, people are ready to spend that extra on investing in themselves. So they get like optional
mm,
gym memberships, and they buy higher quality food, or they do all kinds of optional stuff to take care of themselves. But if your basic necessities are not met, like you will just eat whatever you need to just to stay alive. But if you
mm,
have the basics, you are ready to start investing in yourself, and that is becoming cheaper and easier and more precise. And also, we are replacing a lot of the underperforming expert systems with technology and algorithms. So
mm,
AI will replace a lot of doctors, a lot of nutritionists, a lot of coaches eventually. I believe so, that our collective intelligence of all these things can be fed to a machine, and that can do a better job than a lot of us individually. I mean, how many research papers you really can read in a year? Like, you can't keep up with technology's ability to do that. So, and the more precise it becomes, the more likely it is that, you know, we need to hand over some control or like some input to machines. But in the end, you need to do the choice then to, okay, I'm going to do it. Like, no one
mm,
else is not going to do it for you, not even a machine. So it's like you have to walk the talk. You have to like implement what is being told, and that goes back to human psychology and behavior change and how to engineer that. And precisely for this reason, I developed Holo Habits, which is a free app on App Store. Holo Habits, and it is a system that helps you to change your behavior and develop healthy habits with the help of data.
mhm,
But I mean, that's just a small effort. But I do think that in terms of our lifespan and health span expansion, technology will play an increasingly important role.
mhm. Yeah, thank you for that. And the last question, excuse me, the last question is, what thought or act takes you back to a childlike, playful state?
Um, I think I'm like, so one of the things is that like, because I became quite independent early on in my life. So I
Mm,
started a company, I was teaching others, and like I kind of walked my own way. I have been working for thousands of companies, but never been employed by anyone else but myself. So
mm,
in a way, I've been just playing. I just,
mm,
enjoy life. I don't take myself too seriously.
mm,
I receive my recognitions and validations and all that. I don't need any of it. um, I don't need to be famous or any of that. All, like, for me, it's more about how my work is making impact in others,
mm,
and showing in what they do, that makes me happy. But in the
mhm,
end, I've noticed that if I start to take myself too seriously, or I start to worry too much or work too much, like, that's a never ending loop. Like, you have to
mm,
stay connected. And for me, it's always been nature, spending more time in nature, and also with your human nature, and being transparent
mm,
about it. And
mm,
so I kind of joke that I'm somebody becoming nobody, but like, because while most people spend their lives to become somebody, like that, like, it's I mean, what do you want? Do you want a statue to be built for you? Like, is that how you want to be remembered? Or do you want to be remembered how you made other people felt? um
mm. Yeah.
like, yeah, it's in the end, like, if you are like a bit stiff, like, I'm Finnish, I don't smile much. I'm in my zone sometimes, but I have pretty bad jokes, by the way, and sarcastic humor sometimes.
There's a smile right there. Now,
Yeah,
I know
I try to
you
fake it.
Now, I'm sure it's authentic.
Yeah, it's
Now,
real.
yeah. There's a gift that you're also offering our audience. Can you, and it's a free gift for them to be able to download to to experience some of your work. Can you tell us about that gift, Teemu?
Yeah, so I've written the Biker's Handbook. So that's been like a decade in the works. We have a
Mm,
sequel to coming for it, but you will be able to access my advice on how to optimize your sleep
mm,
from the
yeah.
moment when you wake up until the moment when you go to sleep. I think that's one of the essential parts where to start. A lot of people ask me, what should I do? And that's the easiest thing to fix. Like,
Mm,
it's more important than diet, it's more important than exercise. uh, it's the most important thing that you get enough recovery. And so
mm,
yeah, like
yeah.
there's a
Thank
PDF you
you.
can download, and that's on optimizing your sleep. And if you're
Awesome.
interested more, the Parker's Handbook, and of course the event Parker's Summit that we have in several times a year now. This year in July in Helsinki, and later this year in Tokyo, in Japan, are great events to come if you want to find like-minded people who are not taking themselves too seriously, or on the opposite side are the most extreme freaks you can find of health optimization. You will find both.
That's awesome. And we'll put all these details in the show notes. Teemu, I want to say thank you for being a disruptor, for causing us to think differently, challenging our beliefs, challenging our systems, challenging the current model of life, and introducing a way that's just to think more sophisticated, some in a more sophisticated way about how we approach life, how we approach our wellness, how we approach life's struggles and challenges, and how we approach the content that's out there and the people and the experts and all the things, like just very, very disruptive. And I truly appreciate it. I think it's necessary to shake things up so we can really do make change within ourselves, for our lives, and for the better. Do you have any parting words?
Oh, that was well said. So
Okay.
nothing to add.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
so much for being here with us today, and thank you for your time and generosity. I appreciate the work you're doing. You do it in such a unique way, and to me the word disruptive just always comes to mind, and I just think that's necessary because we've created such rigid systems within this world of our humanity, and a lot of it isn't working anymore. And so to change, I think it starts with that disruption and awareness and taking full responsibility. So thank you for presencing that in your talk. And with
Thank you.
that, yes, yes, yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Mwah.